costs by getting a little bit more of a sweetener, so to speak. It's my understanding, and George can correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, you get 25% of your qualified expenses. That's what the company claimed against 25%.
Getting a little bit more of a.
And so I would hope, maybe we could do something where if you go into one of these counties or communities that have not had much exposure to the film tax credit, the percentage of qualified expenses would be higher. I'm throwing it out there as a discussion piece. I don't want to hold the bill up unless there's some interest in it, but it's something I really would be interested in pursuing.
George, you want to respond to that before I go to Delegate Wells?
Delegate Buckle, I did speak with the Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce did raise administrative concerns, and their liaison is here, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to recognize them in that capacity, to speak to potential complexities related to Delegate Buckle's proposal.
Delegate Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Buckle, for the discussion. So I guess there's a couple of things. I'm not aware of there being, well, let me step back. My understanding is that I think one of the biggest challenges that I talked about this in the bill hearing is the amount of money that the fund is. There is appetite and demand to film all across the state, right? But there's not enough money. So I think that that's a big part of where we are. The other piece too is that this is also a first come, first serve. So it also does depend on the project. So it's not like an initial, there's not a, all the projects have different timelines, which, you know what I mean? So that's not something that we can really control. And I think the third piece, which I think is the most important piece, is that this will establish the Film Council. And in conversations with Commerce and with the council, committee council, there is a lot that this will look into, which I don't know if it's specifically indicated in there, but I know that there is a desire by Commerce to ensure that if we expand upon this credit, or when we do expand upon the credit, that this is a credit that we will be able to grow a more robust production here in the state of Maryland, which means across the state that we are doing production, post-production, and all the other activities that would be associated with it. So I definitely know where your heart is. I'm there with you. I just don't think that right now would be the best time for us to try to tackle that.
Right.
I see Jen here from Commerce. Jen, if you want to cut your camera and I'll give you a moment to speak on this.
Thank you, Delegate. I did want to just chime in addition to what Delegate Wells pointed out, we do agree that increasing the total amount of the credit is what will really make a difference in terms of attracting not only more film entities to the state, but also attracting them to different parts of the state. I also did want to make sure to point out that of the large film productions that do come to the state, they, for the most part, are hitting the per production cap already. And they are filming in multiple jurisdictions at a time. So an increase, heightened credit for filming in a certain part of the state, to be honest, wouldn't make much of a difference for them because they're already hitting that cap anyway. For the small entities that aren't hitting a cap, it may make a difference, but they are generally filming in one jurisdiction, and they, I think, typically have a jurisdiction in mind. They have a specific location in mind to begin with. So we certainly appreciate the intent of looking at an amendment like that. It would be a little bit difficult administratively for us to work through because they do tend to film in multiple jurisdictions. So we would have to work out the percentage of the time that they spent in one jurisdiction versus another jurisdiction to determine the percentage of their credit. We could work through that, but we frankly don't know that it would be as impactful as hoped. So I think increasing the overall cap is the main thing that would have an impact for the program. And then the council that is proposing the other amendments could certainly look at this issue moving forward and see if that is something that would be good to pursue in the future.
Thank you for that. Delegate Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have any data points on as to who qualified before with some, where a lot of the jurisdictions that had filming taking place? Because I know, like, for instance, Real Housewives of the Potomac, that's a big show that's on E that's getting a lot of traction, and they do come into Prince George's County. And then we have another show that's on OWN network now, which is Love and Marriage DC, which pretty much all of the cast live in Prince George's County. So how, do we have some data points that shows, like, if any of these particular shows been able to qualify for the tax credits over last year and how this could benefit them this coming year?
General George, any input?
Yes, we report on the program each year, so we do have that data, and I can pull and provide to the subcommittee kind of the full listing in recent years of the entities that have qualified. I can send that over to George,
Yeah.
but I don't
Nothing to
believe
hold up
either
the bill.
Yeah,
It
I don't
wouldn't
believe
hold
either
up
of
the bill.
those two were, but I can certainly provide that information.
But definitely want to make sure that they are. I had a chance to speak with a young lady who owns a company that does a lot of production as well, and a lot of her shows kind of go straight to Netflix. A lot of her movies go straight to Netflix, and she does her filming right in Prince George's County as well. And we kind of talked about this tax benefit that was going to be coming up, and figuring out ways that they can truly qualify and know how to do it appropriately. So.
Good. We'll get that information to you guys. Delegate Wells.
I was just gonna say, one of the things that we're gonna be looking into is the revenue generation. And so currently, right now, I know for a lot of the larger productions, the revenue generation is like almost, I think, $4 of revenue, local revenue, to one. But it's because there's a lot of qualifying pieces. Only one of the challenges of reality TV is that a lot of times they don't meet the same qualifying production costs. So that's a bit of a challenge, but the council will look into what are some ways to incentivize it. And then for the young woman you mentioned, Delegate Charles, there is the independent small film fund piece that does already currently exist. And so I feel like that's an area where, we want to look at how we can continue to support, but that might be somewhere where she could find some qualification and she could utilize those resources.
And
Thank
let
you,
me
Mr.
just
Chair.
thank you, Delegate Buckle, that, listen, this is something that has come before this committee for many years, that you and I have been a part of. And I think, as Jen has stated, the real crux of this is funding, right? That there's just not enough money for the tax credit to really hit to the heart of things. But I am hopeful that we are moving in a direction where everybody understands and realize how important this could be to the state of Maryland. That we have increased it ever so slightly, but there is an increase. And I'm hopeful that with the establishment of the Maryland Entertainment Council, that we will really be able to dive down and to really see exactly where are some other areas or the areas in which we need to improve on. So next year and the upcoming years, that we can really say we have a comprehensive study that says this is what's going on here in the state of Maryland, and we know how to move forward.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the amendment? If not, is there a motion to accept the amendment?
I think we did that part.
We did? All right. Is there a motion to accept the bill as amended?
Move the bills amended.
Is there a second? There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Jen, you see what I have to go through in this committee? I gotta fight for my folks to say something. All in favor of House Bill 270, House Bill 270 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any noes? Thank you. House Bill 270, George, has passed. Next up is House Bill 622. George, you want to give an overview?
Yes, sir. House Bill 622 would establish the Industry 4.0 Technology Grant Program and Fund in the Department of Commerce to assist small and medium-sized enterprise manufacturers in the purchase, implementation, and related employee training of Industry 4.0 technology and related infrastructure. Subject to specified requirements, including provision of matching funds and a competitive application process, an eligible company may receive a grant of $25,000 to $500,000. There's one amendment before you for your consideration. The amendment will reduce the amount of the appropriation mandated for the program under the bill as amended from fiscal 25 through 28. The governor would be required to include in the annual budget bill an appropriation of $1 million for the fund.
Are there any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the amendment?
Move favorable or second.
It's been properly moved and second. All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? On the bill as, I'm sorry, Delegate Palakovich Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have another amendment for the subcommittee to consider. And colleagues, sorry for earlier. I was having a lot of technical difficulties, had to keep changing devices, but I think my internet is finally caught back up here in the House office building. So I have another amendment to consider on this bill that would specifically have a set aside for small businesses, defined as small businesses that employ up to 50 employees, and to set aside 20% of the funding for the program each year for small businesses. And then if there weren't enough applicants in that small business pot, Commerce could use the funding for businesses that were larger than that. I have spoken to the bill sponsor and to Commerce about this, and if we'd like any additional data or context from Commerce, Jen is on here, but it looks like right now the program utilization does skew towards smaller businesses. I just want to make sure that there is a dedicated source of funding for them going forward. This is a similar posture to what we've done with some other programs administered by Commerce. So I would move that amendment.
No, you have spoken to me in regards to that. I am favorable for that. Are there any questions in regards to Palakovich Carr's amendment? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the amendment?
I move the amendment.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? On the bill as amended,
Move favorable.
Second.
all in favor of House Bill 622 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. George, House Bill 622 passes. Next up is House Bill 781. George, you want to go read the overview?
Yes, sir. House Bill 781 would establish the Equitech Growth Commission and Fund in the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, to support economic competitiveness and inclusive growth of emerging and advanced industries in the state. TEDCO must staff the commission, which must develop a report on a strategic plan and 10-year goals by July 1st, 2025 for growing the state's innovation economy. There is an amendment before you. The amendment alters the annual appropriations mandated for the program. It would also alter the membership of the Equitech Growth Commission established by the bill to include a representative of the Maryland Association of Counties and the Maryland Tech Council, pardon me. With respect to the appropriations, it has amended, or if you adopt these amendments for each of fiscal years 25 through 33, the governor will be required to include an appropriation of $5 million for the program in the budget bill.
Are there any questions on the amendment?
How much was the original bill, George? You said it amended back to 5. I can't remember where it was.
Overall, it was a $500 million program spread across the 10 years. There was a discretionary, I believe, $15,000 for fiscal 24. And then if you give me a moment, I can.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's just the point. It was a very
Yeah.
big program, which I liked. I thought it made some impact, and now we're kind of currying it back to a fairly smaller program. Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? On the bill as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Good. George House Bill 781 has passed as well. If there are no questions, that concludes our meeting for revenues. Thank you guys so much, and have a good evening.